Thanks to the folks who led the way. Thanks to the folks, let us thank them every day.
Welcome to the Fresh Toones Music Show. My name is Dave Paltz, and today's show is one of those inspirational live shows. As I've been thinking about those folks that have influenced my life, I was thinking back in my 20s and the early 1970s, something that really impacted me, and that was the book The Prophet. Changed my way of thinking about religion and faith, and started to expand my mind to think about things a little differently. So when I read Kahlil Gibran's book, it really changed the way I was thinking about things. I was kind of doing that transition of drifting away from the Christian church, the Lutheran church, and looking for something that spoke a little bit clearer to me. So when I read The Prophet, it opened up a whole new doors for me. And today I want to play some of Richard Harris' readings of The Prophet. I still have an album that I got back in the early 1970s that has some music and has him reading parts of the book. I won't be able to play it all today, but I want to get going, so let me play the first part. It's called On Love.
Then said Almitra, "Speak to us of love." And he raised his head and looked upon the people, and there fell a stillness upon them. And with a great voice he said, "When love beckons to you, follow him, though his ways are hard and steep. And when his wings enfold you, yield to him, though the sword hidden among his pinions may wound you. And when he speaks to you, believe in him, though his voice may shatter your dreams as the north wind lays waste the garden. For even as love crowns you, so shall he crucify you. Even as he is for your growth, so is he for your pruning. Even as he ascends to your height and caresses your tenderest branches that quiver in the sun, so shall he descend to your roots and shake them in their clinging to the earth. Like sheaves of corn, he gathers you unto himself. He threshes you to make you naked. He sifts you to free you from your husk. He grinds you to whiteness. He kneads you until you are pliant. And then he assigns you to his sacred fire, that you may become sacred bread for God's sacred feast. All these things shall love do unto you, that you may know the secrets of your heart, and in that knowledge become a fragment of life's heart. But if in your fear you would seek only love's peace and love's pleasure, then it is better for you that you cover your nakedness and pass out of love's threshing floor into the seasonless world, where you shall laugh, but not all of your laughter, and weep, but not all of your tears. Love gives naught but itself, and takes naught but from itself. Love possesses not, nor would it be possessed, for love is sufficient unto love. When you love, you should not say, "God is in my heart," but rather, "I am in the heart of God." And think not you can direct the course of love, for love, if it finds you worthy, directs your course. Love has no other desire but to fulfill itself. But if you love and must needs have desires, let these be your desires: to melt and be like a running brook that sings its melody to the night, to know the pain of too much tenderness, to be wounded by your own understanding of love, and to bleed willingly and joyfully, to wake at dawn with a winged heart and give thanks for another day of loving, to rest at the noon hour and meditate love's ecstasy, to return home at eventide with gratitude, and then to sleep with a prayer for the beloved in your heart and a song of praise upon your lips.
when I was trying to think of who the next inspirational live show would be about, it came to me when I was working on a painting called The Climb, which is done in egg tempera, and it's very meditative, getting into this very meticulous style of painting. So I put on the album, and I just kept playing it over and over, flipping the sides over and playing it some more. And I really got a lot of painting done. Very meditative. So if you're into painting or drawing or whatever meditative thing you might do that doesn't require, that wouldn't be distracted by a lot of verbal stuff, it's a great soundtrack to be playing in the background. In a way, I'm imprinting those ideas, probably imprinting them into whatever the art piece that I'm working on. The next part that Richard Harris is going to read is probably the most popular, and it's called On Marriage.
Then Almitra spoke again and said, "And what of marriage, master?" And he answered, saying, "You were born together, and together you shall be forevermore. You shall be together when the white wings of death scatter your days. Aye, you shall be together even in the silent memory of God. But let there be spaces in your togetherness, and let the winds of the heavens dance between you. Love one another, but make not a bond of love. Let it rather be a moving sea between the shores of your souls. Fill each other's cup, but drink not from one cup. Give one another of your bread, but eat not from the same loaf. Sing and dance together and be joyous, but let each one of you be alone. Even as the strings of a lute are alone, though they quiver with the same music. Give your hearts, but not into each other's keeping, for only the hand of life can contain your hearts. And stand together, yet not too near together, for the pillars of the temple stand apart, and the oak tree and the cypresses grow not in each other's shadow.
This is the Fresh Toones Music Show, and today we're listening to some readings done by Richard Harris of the book The Prophet. The next section I'd like to share with you is kind of hippie-ish, from the 60s and 70s. Those hippies were all about love and peace and love and freedom, and the youth were going to change the world, and a lot of us are still trying to do it, but sometimes it doesn't quite seem like it's going in the right direction. But we're still struggling. This next section of the book is called On Children, and it has a trilogy song with it. It's kind of operatic. Back in the 70s, it was a big thing to have like Jesus Christ Superstar and Hair and a number of other musical operas, rock operas. So this is kind of reminiscent of that.
And a woman who held a babe against her bosom said, "Speak to us of children." And he said, "Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. For life goes not backward, not tarries but yesterday. You are the bows from which your children, as living arrows, are sent forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite, and he bends you with his might that his arrows may go swift and far. Let your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness, for even as he loves the arrow that flies, so he loves also the bow that is stable.
Let your love be a moving sea between the shores of your souls. Sing and dance together forevermore, but let every one of you be alone. Your children are not your children. They come through you, but not from you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls. Give them the loving they all need. Love gives naught but itself, and takes naught but from itself. Love possesses not, nor would it be possessed, for love is sufficient unto love.
Well, I'm going to keep things going here with two new sections from the book The Prophet, read by Richard Harris. The two sections are called On Giving and On Eating and Drinking.
Then said a rich man, "Speak to us of giving." And he answered, "You give but little when you give of your possessions. It is when you give of yourself that you truly give. For what are your possessions but things you keep and guard for fear you may need them tomorrow? And tomorrow? What shall tomorrow bring to the overprudent dog burying bones in the trackless sand as he follows the pilgrims to the holy city? And what is fear of need but need itself? Is not dread of thirst when your well is full, the thirst that is unquenchable? There are those who give little of the much which they have, and they give it for recognition, and their hidden desire makes their gifts unwholesome. And there are those who have little and give it all. These are the believers in life and the bounty of life, and their coffer is never empty. There are those who give with joy, and that joy is their reward. And there are those who give with pain, and that pain is their baptism. And there are those who give and know not pain in giving, nor do they seek joy, nor give with mindfulness of virtue. They give as in yonder valley the myrtle breathes its fragrance into space. Through the hands of such as these, God speaks, and from behind their eyes he smiles upon the earth. It is well to give when asked, but it is better to give unasked through understanding. All you have shall someday be given. Therefore, give now, that the season of giving may be yours and not your inheritors. You often say, I would give, but only to the deserving. The trees in your orchard say not so, nor the flocks in your pasture. They give that they may live, for to withhold is to perish. See first that you yourself deserve to be a giver and an instrument of giving. For in truth, it is life that gives unto life, while you who deem yourself a giver are but a witness. Then an old man, a keeper of an inn, said, "Speak to us of eating and drinking." And he said, "Would that you could live on the fragrance of the earth, and like an air plant be sustained by the light. But since you must kill to eat, and rob the newly born of its mother's milk to quench your thirst, let it then be an act of worship, and let your board stand an altar on which the pure and the innocent of forest and plain are sacrificed for that which is purer and still more innocent in man. When you kill a beast, say to him in your heart, by the same power that slays you, I too am slain, and I too shall be consumed. For the law that delivered you into my hand shall deliver me into a mightier hand. Your blood and my blood is naught, but the sap that feeds the tree of heaven. And when you crush an apple with your teeth, say to it in your heart, your seeds shall live in my body, and the buds of your tomorrow shall blossom in my heart, and your fragrance shall be my breath, and together we shall rejoice through all the seasons.
The book The Prophet by Kahlil Gibran, kind of having some flashbacks of how much this book meant to me at the time. Some folks might say, well, it's kind of hokey. It's a book that's, it's a book that's been rehashed so many times, and it's kind of a silly book, some folks might say. Well, it wasn't in my life, and that's why I've included it in today's Inspirational Lives, and Kahlil Gibran was certainly an inspirational live, certainly by his writings, and I've read many of his other books, very poetic, very meaningful to me. The next section I want to play for you is a section called On Clothes and on Work.
And the weaver said, "Speak to us of clothes." And he answered, "Your clothes conceal much of your beauty, yet they hide not the unbeautiful. And though you seek in garments the freedom of privacy, you may find in them a harness and a chain. Would that you could meet the sun and the wind with more of your skin and less of your raiment. For the breath of life is in the sunlight, and the hand of life is in the wind. Some of you say, it is the north wind who has woven the clothes, beware. And I say, aye, it was the north wind. But shame was his loom, and the softening of the sinews was his thread. And when his work was done, he laughed in the forest. Forget not that modesty is for a shield against the eye of the unclean. And when the unclean shall be no more, what were modesty but a fetter and a fouling of the mind? And forget not that the earth delights to feel your bare feet, and the winds long to play with your hair. Then a plowman said, "Speak to us of work." And he answered, saying, "You work that you may keep pace with the earth and the soul of the earth. For to be idle is to become a stranger unto the seasons, and to step out of life's procession that marches in majesty and proud submission towards the infinite. When you work, you are a flute through whose heart the whispering of the hours turns to music. Which of you would be a reed, dumb and silent, when all else sings together in unison? Always you have been told that work is a curse and labor a misfortune. To love life through labor is to be intimate with life's inmost secret. You have been told also that life is darkness, and in your weariness you echo what was said by the weary. And I say that life is indeed darkness, save when there is urge, and all urge is blind, save when there is knowledge, and all knowledge is vain, save when there is work, and all work is empty, save when there is love. And when you work with love, you bind yourself and to one another and to God. And what is it to work with love? It is to weave the cloth with threads drawn from your heart, even as if your beloved were to wear that cloth. It is to build a house with affection, even as if your beloved were to dwell in that house. It is to sow seeds with tenderness and reap the harvest with joy, even as if your beloved were to eat the fruit. It is to charge all things you fashion with the breath of your own spirit, and to know that all the blessed dead are standing about you and watching. Work is love made visible. And if you cannot work with love, but only with distaste, it is better that you should leave your work and sit at the gate of the temple and take alms of those who work with joy.
This is the Fresh Tunes Music Show, and we're listening to the readings by Richard Harris of the book The Prophet, with some intermittent rock operatic compositions. The next parts that I want to play for you are called On Friendship and On Pleasure.
And a youth said, "Speak to us of friendship." And he answered, saying, "Your friend is your needs answered. When your friend speaks his mind, you fear not the nay in your own mind, nor do you withhold the I. In friendship, all thoughts, all desires, all expectations are born and shared with joy that is unacclaimed. When you part from your friend, you grieve not, for that which you love most in him may be clearer in his absence. And let there be no purpose in friendship save the deepening of the spirit. And let your best be for your friend. What is your friend that you should seek him with hours to kill? Seek him always with hours to live." Then a hermit who visited the city once a year came forth and said, "Speak to us of pleasure." And he answered, saying, "Pleasure is a freedom song. But it is not freedom. It is the blossoming of your desires, but it is not their fruit. It is the depth calling unto a height, but it is not the deep nor the high. It is the cage taking wing, but it is not space encompassed. Aye, in very truth, pleasure is a freedom song. And I fain would have you sing it with fullness of heart, yet I would not have you lose your hearts in the singing. Some of you youth seek pleasure as if it were all, and they are judged and rebuked. I would not judge nor rebuke them. I would have them seek, for they shall find pleasure, but not her alone. And some of your elders remember pleasures with regret, like wrongs committed in drunkenness. They should remember their pleasures with gratitude, as they would the harvest of a summer. And there are among you those who are neither young to seek nor old to remember. And in their fear of seeking and remembering, they shun all pleasures, lest they neglect the spirit or offend against it. But tell me, who is he that can offend the spirit? Shall the nightingale offend the stillness of the night, or the firefly the stars? Oftentimes in denying yourself pleasure, you do but store the desire in the recesses of your being. Who knows but that which seems omitted today waits for tomorrow? Even your body knows its heritage and its rightful need, and will not be deceived. And your body is the harp of your soul, and it is yours to bring forth sweet music from it, or confused sounds. And now you ask in your heart, how shall we distinguish that which is good and pleasure from that which is not good? Go to your fields and your gardens, and you shall learn that it is the pleasure of the bee to gather honey of the flower, but it is also the pleasure of the flower to yield its honey to the bee. For to the bee, a flower is a fountain of life, and to the flower, a bee is a messenger of love. And to both bee and flower, the giving and the receiving of pleasure is a need and an ecstasy. People of Orphalese, be in your pleasures like the flowers and the bees.
Well, I'm often encouraging other folks to sing their fresh tunes and write their stories, and this is certainly a fresh tune of Kahlil Gibran, and that's why I wanted to share it on this show. I hope everybody has a great week, and you go out and be creative and have fun and tell your story and speak up and stand up, and hopefully you tune in next week. So long now.
Thanks to the folks who led the way. Thanks to the folks, let us thank them every day.